All right, so welcome. I apologize for not having other videos, but I've got that all figured out now, I hope. And so this is week 3. We've got chapters 4 and 5. I'm going to do a brief rundown over those. Um, Also, discussion board 1 is due, and that is right here under week 3. And discussion boards, I apologize. I had it on, but I did not have it available, so I apologize for that. It's now on and available. You will take these 3 assessments right here. So the RIA-SEC markers, the Cattell's 16 personality factors test, and the evaluations of attractiveness scale for if you're attracted to the male gender, then this one. If you're attracted to the female gender, then this one. If you're attracted to both, then take both of them. If you're attracted to neither of them, then just take one of them for the test. And then answer these part 2 discussion questions. So that you can read through those as you will. Go back to the calendar here. So that is due. The impact of culture on assessments reflection paper, and that down here, begin your personal assessment report, and you should have the impact of culture on both of yours. I will get those back to you by Saturday. Take your time over the next week, just make sure any changes get made, and I'm more than happy to keep going over that paper until you get the grade that you would like. And so also due by Sunday, you'll have parts A, B, C, and D of your personal assessment report. Make sure that you save your assessments that you take with the discussion board as part of your paper. So you'll need to save those results. Either screenshot it or take a picture of it, however you need to make sure that you save your assessments, okay? Because it's going to go into your overall personal assessment report. So this week is due parts A, B, C, and D of the personal assessment report. With that, I will head on over to Chapter 4. Chapter 4, Assessments. Report process, which is pertinent to what we're doing this week, correct? And so when you do work with people, you'll make reports of different types and different notes. This will be actually a report that you would potentially share with a treatment team. And so first thing you do in any report is how are you going to gather the data, and is it going to be for breadth or width? You'll have structured, unstructured, and semi-structured interviews. And I always like to do interviews face-to-face. There are reports and assessments that you can do with just online stuff, but I think especially if you're going to be a clinician, you're going to want to learn how to do interviews. And you have access to these, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on them, but maybe some comments as we talk through this. So today, because of technology, we have a lot of computer-driven assessments. Makes it easier to collect data. You do miss that personal touch, though, but it makes assessing and scoring and things like that a lot easier because it's all part of a program. You want to make sure that if you're assessing for certain things like depression, those are the instruments that you'd want to use or have questions that are related to that if that's the person's presenting issue. makes sense. You may not want to necessarily do the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Instrument. It's a huge test, and it's looking particularly for personality disorders, amongst other things. But in general, you want to make sure that you're using tests that are appropriate. Plus, it takes a long time, and it's difficult to score. And you also want to take into consideration that some assessments you're not capable of doing because you don't have the right education or the experience to do certain assessments. So when we do reports, we're going to want to make sure that you're following records and keeping records according to whatever fits for you. If you're in a college setting or an education setting, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, makes a difference. The Freedom of Information Act, as well as the HIPAA. So just in writing in general, these are things that you'd want to be considerate of. Avoiding passive verbs. You want to try to avoid judgment, good, bad, things that we say all the time, but doesn't really sound like it's a judgment, but it does add to judgment. You want to avoid using a lot of psychological jargon or counseling jargon. Avoid patronizing. Increase the use of subheadings, so that way everything is clear, exactly what you're talking about. Reduce the use of and define acronyms. So anytime you use an acronym, you should always spell it out, and then in parentheses behind it, use that acronym. And then if you are going to use it anytime after that, you can just use the acronym. But in general, try to avoid acronyms, and then if you got to use them, always define them before using them. Don't just assume that people know what an acronym means. So again, the simpler the language, the better. Use shorter rather than longer words. Make sure paragraphs are concise and flow well. In general, most paragraphs should be 4 to 6 sentences, and should be, when one paragraph ends, it should flow into the next paragraph. Especially if it's in the same subheader. If it's different subheadings, then it's okay to not necessarily flow, but you do want it to just not end abruptly. Point out strengths and weaknesses of your client. Don't try to dazzle the reader with your report. When possible, describe behaviors that are representative of client issues. So if they're depressed, you're going to want to describe their body language and indicators on assessments and things like that. Your perspective, and does it fit? Only label when it is necessary and valuable to do so for the client's well-being. Write the report so non-mental health professionals can understand it, teachers, and do not be afraid to take a stand if you feel strongly the information warrants information. So those are some pretty good suggestions. So very quickly, your report, and this is going to be similar to the report you're doing, generally contains demographic information, the presenting problem, family background, significant mental counseling history, substance use and abuse, vocational and educational history, other pertinent background information, mental status, assessment of test results or test results, diagnosis, summary and conclusions, and recommendations. And so, as you can see, the rest of this is just going to describe that information that's contained within the report. And if you look at your own report that you're doing, your personal assessment, you'll see that all this information is contained in there. And so you'll want to make sure that you are presenting it in a helpful way. When we get to that point, you're going to want to make sure that you do a thorough summary and conclusion section. And so that is chapter 4. And then chapter 5 is testworthiness. And so as we go along, you'll see that the 4 cornerstones of testworthiness are validity, reliability, cross-cultural fairness, and practicality. And so those are going to be what we base worthiness off of. First thing that you have to learn is a statistical concept called correlational coefficient. And so correlation is the set of, or the relationship between 2 sets of scores. And so positive correlation, an increase in one variable is accompanied by an increase in another. There's a direct relationship. The negative correlation is an increase in one variable is accompanied by a decrease in another variable, or the inverse relationship. And you can read through this on your own. Just remember that correlations are between -1 and +1. As the R reaches +1, it increases in a direct and positive way. And as R approaches -1, it increases in inverse in a negative way. And we'll see some graphs here as we go along. That's a good way of looking at it. So which of these seems stronger? Even though this one is negative, 0.67, missed classes and college GPA is so the higher the more missed classes there are, the lower the GPA is. As a result, it's a strong negative correlation because as this increases, this decreases. Over here, this is a weak relationship to the positive side. Out of the two, what's being demonstrated here is that even though this is negative, it's the stronger correlation. So sometimes that's tricky. And looking at graphs, again, this, if you could draw a line straight through here, that is the correlation. And as you draw a line straight through here, that would be the correlation. And so this is a strong positive or moderate positive. This is a moderate negative relationship. Or as I was saying, sorry, this one is the SAT and GPA, so this is a weak, and this is a stronger one. Though it doesn't look like they would be too different. And this one is obviously a 1-to-1 positive, so this is as strong as you get, and this is as strong as you get going to the inverse. This was going to have a fairly strong positive correlation, and this one looks kind of very weak. I think overall it's going to be maybe if it's a slight positive or a slight negative, it depends. I'd have to see what the line would be. And again, this was going to be a negative correlation. As you can see, even though the plots in general they're going down and to the right, this one's going to be either very poor or weak and maybe positive, but it's hard to tell because they're so scattered here. And so as you go through, you'll be able to read through this. So validity is one of the key concepts of statistics, and it's the degree to which all accumulated evidence supports the intended interpretation of test scores. So does it make sense that this test or this assessment this person reached that score. Okay, and within that there are different types of validity. There's content validity, criterion related validity, and construct validity. And you will want to know those for the quiz. Like I said, I'm not going to go through everything in detail here. But if you have any specific questions, don't forget to email me them so that I can give you some potential answers, I hope. So reliability is the accuracy or the consistency of the test scores. So you can have great reliability and poor validity. So people might get the same scores on the test, but they might not really be testing what it's supposed to be. So that's an important thing to realize. So as you read through, you'll see the different types of reliability. So Cronbach's alpha, that is an important number when it comes to actually looking at assessments and what their previous, especially if you're looking at assessments and how they relate to different populations of people, because different populations will have different Cronbach's alphas. So the third concept that we have is cross-cultural fairness, and it's really important that we realize that a lot of the earlier tests and assessments were given were biased towards namely the predominant culture. In this case, the United States, it tends to be white males. So today tests have gotten a lot more fair. However, sometimes there's still bias, as you found out when you were writing your initial reports. As you can see, there were quite a bit of legislation that's geared towards trying to make things as fair as possible. And then finally, the last factor in giving an assessment is practicality. So how much time does it take to do? How much cost is it? What's the format? Is it clear for everybody? Is it readable? Ease of administration, scoring, and interpretation. So all of these matter when it comes to giving a test or an assessment of some sort. Whenever you're going to select and administer a test or assessment, you always want to make sure that it's meeting the client's goals. You choose the instruments to reach those client goals, assess information or access information about possible instruments. After you get an instrument, you want to examine its validity, its reliability, its cross-cultural fairness, and the practicality of using it. And then out of all that information, making a good choice on which assessment to actually use. So that is chapters 4 and 5. And just to recap, all that will be due is to view this video and take the chapter 4 and 5 quizzes. The discussion board is now available. Again, I apologize. I thought that I had it turning on automatically on the first day of the week, but I must not have. So I apologize for that. It is now available to you. And then as you take your assessments, follow those links at the beginning of the discussion board. You want to make sure that you save all of your information, because that's going to go into your personal assessment report. And then just make sure that you make a comment on another student's post. It started halfway through the week, so let's do that by next Wednesday as well. And then we have the personal assessment report. What the first parts are A, B, C, and D are due by Sunday. And then looking at next week, we have chapter 6 and 7. And you'll get a video like this, only shorter, because hopefully I won't have so much to review. You'll take that, you'll do chapter 6 and 7 quizzes, and then you will have discussion board prompt 2, which would be due by the 28th. So take the 3 online assessments required for the assignment as per syllabus again, save all your results again, and then again make another comment on your board to at least another student's post, as well as making your own posts. You'll continue with the personal assessment, sections E, F, G, and H. Okay, and that is for week 4. And I will be turning on tomorrow. I'll turn on the PowerPoints and the quizzes for week 4. So if you have any questions, again, about any of the chapters that we've studied so far, so chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, please email those to me, and I will make a video by Saturday answering those questions, and then everything will be that's due this week is due by Sunday. All right. Well, it was nice to actually get this video and get this to you. Like I said, if you have any questions, or if you need to contact me, or if you want to get a time set up to answer questions, just let me know. Have a good day.